knowing that you'll respect them in the morning with intelligent talk that stimulates.
Welcome back to Inside the News. This is our Picking Up the Pieces segment. We've got Frank Vernuccio, Ben Brunson, myself, Guy Wehman, and we're going to talk about something just a little bit different here. Will there be an uprising? No matter which candidate wins, the other side is going to have their people. We know that there's going to be protesters, and maybe Antifa might come on out if Donald Trump wins. But if Joe Biden wins, the peaceful protesters, it's going to be interesting what they're going to do, because I saw hundreds of flags that had Donald Trump on it and Trump signs everywhere. And yet I did not see the same in kind for Joe Biden. Okay, Ben, I'm going to let you tackle it. Will there be an uprising?
Well, let's look at the two scenarios. If Trump is ultimately declared the winner, and it appears that for him to do so successfully will require some amount of legal action. That's not a foregone conclusion, but let's just say it does. Yes, we're going to be back to the hot days of the past summer in terms of BLM and progressives on the streets. But Trump will have a free hand to react this time, as opposed to his politically restrained reaction of the past summer. If Biden wins, I'm going to say there will not be an uprising. A lot of disappointed people, but most Republicans will accept it, the outcome. And the biggest reason is because what we were just talking about in the last segment, the GOP retains the Senate. That is the biggest pressure relief valve that I can think of right now, because everyone understands that means that the crazy progressive left ideology is off the table for now. Again, what happens in 2 years becomes really the future of our country in that senatorial race. But for right now, we have 2 years of the inability of Joe Biden and the progressive wing of the party to do any serious damage, like massive tax hikes or all the things they talked about doing that they would do if they had the Senate.
You know, when he says the Senate and the relief valve, it reminds me of Mitch McConnell. He won his Senate seat in Kentucky. He has been such a sure hand, been able to get many of these Supreme Court justices approved here, Frank. And he was like a sleepy guy there at the beginning of Trump's term, but boy, he really poured it on the last 2 years.
No one exceeds me in my admiration for Ben. However, I'm going to have to disagree on your analysis, because I believe there will be significant uprisings by the left under a Biden presidency.
Really?
They will believe that they've captured the White House, and unless they get absolutely everything that they want, they will run rampant in the streets. I believe that the demonstrations under Biden administration could exceed what we saw under the Trump administration. They will feel safe from a lot of law enforcement. They will feel that they own the White House. They're immune from a lot of prosecution. They know that Biden needs to be kowtowing to the progressive element of his own party, so he will not crack down on it hard. Remember, you heard Ilhan Omar, you heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the rest of the squad talk about Joe Biden as being just a stepping stone to their ultimate goal. When Joe Biden feels handicapped from giving the progressives everything they want, because he has to make some level of respectability for his own presidency and his own party, the left, the hard left, is going to go bananas. And they're going to take it to the streets, and the level of anger, the level of civil disorder is going to even exceed what we would have seen under a Trump victory.
So the AOC and the squad and those people, they're going to say, you know what, we got Biden in there, and we got gypped because he's not going to do what we want. Is that what you're saying?
Precisely.
And Frank, I mean, Ben, I see that you're nodding your head, and go for it.
All I can say is touche, Frank, because that's great analysis, and I wasn't thinking along those lines, but I think you're absolutely, positively correct. And for the same reason that the Senate is the pressure valve for let's say a right-wing uprising, which I don't see, it is the pressure cap and lid on the left wing, and it is the stopping point, the barrier between the progressive dream agenda being implemented by a rogue Senate and not being able to be implemented. And there will be great frustration on the left as a result. You think of the Senate battle between Schumer and AOC coming up, and all of the frustration and the claims that will be made that of the do-nothing Democrats in Congress who were elected in but can't get anything done. And that's going to be an interesting thing to play out.
All right, we've got to take a break, and we were right in the middle of sentences, but we're going to keep on going, and we are still going to talk about the virus. It's coming back, and lockdowns and what's going on in Europe. We've got Frank Vernuccio top left, Ben Brunson at the bottom middle. My name is Guy Wehman, and we've got a lot yet to talk about here. And we were talking about several things in our off times here. And Frank, I'm just going to let you pick one and go.
Well, we were mentioning a bit about the COVID spike in Europe. And as we all know, according to what the media tells us, Donald Trump, while on a quiet trip to China, went into a lab, cooked up COVID, and tried to destroy the world with it. That's the story, basically, the media is trying to convince us of. We're seeing this spike in Europe that somehow can't be blamed on Donald Trump not wearing a mask. The reality of it is we're going to have to accept, like it or not, and it's not, as Joe Biden would call it, a surrender to COVID. It's facing the reality of COVID that, like all other flus, it's pretty much going to be here to stay in one form or another. It appears to be getting less virulent. We appear to be understanding it a lot greater. We appear to be on the verge of having a vaccine for it. But if there was any mirage that somehow or other that COVID was going to go away by wearing a mask and by cowering in our basements and not getting together over a Thanksgiving table, that mirage is quickly dissipating. We simply cannot stop the entire planet in its tracks for a year or more in the vague and vain hope that somehow this is going to go away. And I think the figures coming from Europe are clearly indicating that.
You know, Ben, I was at a football game, and I do some play-by-play for things like that, and I enjoy it. But I was talking to someone there, and I said, these kids are the future of getting us out of the COVID. And I said, let me kind of explain. I said, this viruses are out there. People have got little bits and pieces of all of it. All of us have been affected maybe in one way, small way or another. But these kids are going to build up immunities. And then when we get the vaccine, we're going to have this herd immunity, but it's through these young kids because they can fight it off. Was I onto something here, Ben, or was I in space?
Well, you're onto something called science. Yes, you are following the science. Imagine that, which is an impossibility because you're conservative. So the science says that there are two ways to have immunity: a vaccine or to actually have the virus and survive it. Well, for kids and everyone who's healthy under 20, it's pretty much a non-event. And by letting it spread through that population, you're effectively immunizing or running a vaccine program among the youth of this country, which would get us a long way towards herd immunity and building up the presence of antibodies. So it's a smart way to go. But of course, we seem to have a problem with it. Maybe we'll be more open if Biden is president. That might be the one sunny side of that a positive to come out of it, since we'll get rid of that knee-jerk reaction by the press to do the opposite of whatever Donald Trump says. And of course, those Trump rallies, super spreader events were actually taking place in England, Germany, and Italy. That's why COVID's taken off in Europe.
Yeah, and okay, Frank, your hot button topic.
I want to talk about a bit of self-interest and a bit about what a lot of people in the think tank industry and in journalism are worried about. You recall during the Obama administration that the FCC tried to put monitors in newsrooms. You recall that during the Obama administration, organizations such as the Competitive Enterprise Institute or the Mackinac Institute were attacked by the Department of Justice merely for disagreeing with President Obama on climate change. They were hit with nonsense subpoenas. Of course, they couldn't go anyplace, but nevertheless, lawyers had to be retained, legal fees had to be incurred. You recall how the Internal Revenue Service was used to harass the Tea Party. I think a lot of us are looking with dread about an even more radical Biden administration starting to attack conservative institutes, starting to attack think tanks, and starting, quite frankly, to attack individual conservative journalists. That's what a lot of us have in our mind on this eve of a potential Biden administration.
Okay, Ben, you have about 30 seconds.
Well, I recall that during the entire first year of the Obama administration, they were floating the trial balloons of stripping Fox of their broadcast license. Thankfully, that died. Look, last week I talked about future of war being drone warfare and how that's played out in Azerbaijan. This week I was watching videos of Azerbaijani forces that look just like U.S. videos from the Middle East, precision weapons, thermal imaging. This is real. The Taliban just used drones to launch a deadly attack inside Afghanistan. This is a very real issue. The U.S. Army has just set up an anti-drone school. So they are aware of this issue, and it is the future of war.
All right. Hey, Frank, we have to get out of here. Thanks.
Great being with you all. Get some sleep.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Till next week.
All right. Inside the News. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.